Hi, and welcome to the third episode of the J-Hop Media Bootcamp Podcast 2021. I'm your host, Gleb Zuboff.
And I'm your co-host, Camille Montero. Today we have the pleasure to talk to Miss Gretchen Letterman, who is a former Tampa Bay news editor and school coordinator, who is right now part of the Journeys in Journalism program. Now I'll pass it on to Gleb.
Okay, for my first question, I have to ask you, what inspired you to become an editor?
Thank you, Gleb and Camilla, for having me here today. Editing is one of my favorite things, and I think that probably I got started on that when I was in high school, working on my high school yearbook.
Okay, that's interesting. Now I'll pass it on to Camilla.
Okay, thank you. So why do you think grammar is so important in the newspapers?
That's a great question. Thank you for making me smile when you ask that question. Grammar is important in everything. And for a journalist, it's just very important if you're communicating, to be communicating correctly, to be choosing the right words. We joke all the time that if you are using the wrong words for something, such as exuberant for exorbitant, that you're committing a word crime. And it builds on, if you know your grammar and can communicate clearly and correctly, people will trust you. And that means they'll turn back into your next podcast because, oh, Camilla and Glib got that right. We trust them. They are a good news source. So it's just at the importance of everything we do in communication.
Thank you. That was a very wonderful response.
For my next question, I have to ask you, do you feel like editing grammar for a long period of time would become boring, or does it not?
Excellent question. A lot of people don't like editing because it reminds them of being in English class. I used to tell the writers that I worked with that editing can be a painful process for the person who did the writing, that it's like if you cut your skin open and pulled it open and let the cold air rush in. It's that painful to have someone else say, you know what, maybe this sentence should be written a little differently, or maybe you could choose this word, or maybe this paragraph at the bottom needs to go to the top. But one of the best ways to think about it is that every single person who communicates can use a second pair of eyes, another set of eyes to make sure they're acting as the reader before the readers or the listeners get to their work. And if that person can see, you know, there's a big hole here. You didn't say what the name of the police department was. Or, do you know, look here, this word is postponed, but it's misspelled, so it looks like posted. And those things are so easy to overlook, as well as just the clarity of the sentence. So for me, it's an art. It's being creative with words, and so it's never boring.
Okay, happy to hear that. Now, Camilla, take over.
Okay, thank you. Which grammar mistake is the most common? Which one do you see the most? And which one do you wish you could edit so badly?
That's a fun question. I see this a lot on social media, and even when I'm talking to my own kids, they use the word then instead of than, or than instead of then. Another fabulous one is they use extra words when you say something is based on, like this TV series is based on the novel by so-and-so. Instead of just saying based on, they say based off of, which is extra words. Why do you need that? And then one I see a lot in school journalism is misusing the word principal, as in Principal Jones, who sits in the office down the hallway, versus principles that journalists use to write correctly.
Well, you kind of get used to that if you're in a school setting.
Absolutely, you're right. But it's good to learn at that point.
I bet you lots of teachers in English class see that all the time.
They do, I'm sure they do, and the journalism teachers here see it as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm running out of questions, so here's my last one. What talents must a person have to become a good editor?
Oh, great question. I think that you need to be a voracious reader, because you need to be reading all styles of writing, so that you're not just stuck in a rut and you're not changing everyone's story to fit the same sequence or the same pattern. You also just have to love words. You have to just love the beauty of the language and of communicating. And it's important to be producing material, whether it's in a podcast or online reporting or a blog or in print, that you're communicating to others and you're helping people know what's going on, which ultimately, I know this sounds kind of lofty, but ultimately you're helping make better citizens.
Yeah, I can't even imagine doing that. I'm a math person.
You know, journalists often joke that they're not math people, but, you know, the best journalists are the ones who, I think, who can accept a broad variety of experiences, like even math.
Okay, thank you. Camilla?
Okay, then my last question is, why do you think editing is such a crucial part of the newspaper? Like, do you think newspapers could go without editors?
Oh, wow. I know some people do think that newspapers now, with shortened staff, are going without editors because sometimes there are errors that make it into print. But again, every single person needs an editor or a new set of eyes to help them look at what they've written. I mean, we spent the morning looking at some very silly headlines that got by editors.
Yeah.
I think it's critical. I think they could never, no news publication, whether it be online or in print, could ever live without editors.
Yeah, it's so silly how little mistakes could go by without like a fresh pair of eyes looking over the newspaper.
You're exactly right. Yes, right.
Okay. Well, this is going to be a short podcast, as I realized, so I think we're going to end it here. And I would like to thank you for taking the time to let us chat with you about the subject, and we hope that you have a great day.
Yeah.
Thank you both
Hope you
so
enjoyed
much.
the podcast,
I
and
did enjoy
goodbye.
talking with you. Thank you so much, both of you.